Ooh, what's going on, guys? It's Horse Beef here, and I just watched the Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya press conference, and I gotta say, it's one of the more memorable press conferences I've seen in quite some time. Now, I'm not usually the press conference guy, like I don't usually cover the trash talk and all that, but this one in particular I kind of had to talk about because something very unprecedented happened where we saw Israel Adesanya shed tears. He shed tears.
He touched the subject there because I do this for my family. I do this for the people I love, and I'll fight for you forever. I swear to God. Watch this. I'm a fucking human being.
Maybe Dricus du Plessis is just the most effective trash talker of all time. Like, is that fair to say that he might just be the most effective trash talker of all time, striking nerves on two former champions and making them shed tears on different occasions? Like, yeah, Sean didn't cry at the press conference, but he made him lash out.
Think your dad beat the shit out of you? Your dad doesn't have shit on me. I'm gonna show you what it's like to beat you. I mean, every childhood memory you have is gonna come back when I'm in there with you. Every single one. The one where you lie in bed at night, where your dad comes in and he beats the shit out of you.
I will take your fucking soul. You understand me, you fucking pussy? Yeah, you laugh, you.
Yeah, I got a nerve. I see I hit a nerve there.
Yeah, you did hit a nerve, you bitch.
And then the topic came up during some podcast appearance, and he ended up crying about the topic that Dricus brought to light.
We don't have to talk, man. I can just sit here with you for a minute.
And then you have Israel Adesanya literally breaking down and crying during the press conference. Now, I will say the way he handled himself crying, I didn't actually think was the worst way he could have handled it. And as you guys know, I'm not an Israel Adesanya supporter or a fan whatsoever. I think he's quite insufferable in all honesty. But I think the way that he handled it, like saying, what was it that he said? Like some line, I'll probably just play it right here because I honestly can't remember the exact words, but I'll play it right here.
Watch this. I'm a fucking human being. I am a man. I can cry and whoop your ass at the same time.
Yeah, it wasn't honestly too bad of a response. Like, yeah, I can cry and kick your ass. Not too bad, right? That's not too bad of a response. But at the same time, it's just a very bad look for the mental state that he's in. Even his response to the dog comment from Dricus here.
It's a pick'em. It's very.
Nobody said anything about dogs, bro. Chill out.
I said that. Better shut the fuck up before I go get my coach's taser as well. Fucking tase your balls.
Great line. He spat that out real quick. It's a good line. But it's not even like Dricus du Plessis was rattling off one-liners and he's some silver tongue type of guy, because he really isn't. Right? He's not even really a smooth talker. But it's the meat and potatoes of what he's really saying that gets to his opponents. He says real shit. He doesn't talk trash. He keeps his trash talk within the realms of reality, right? So that's what cuts deep. Those are the deep cutting trash talking moments that Dricus really does capitalize on. And as we've always known, right, is Israel Adesanya is he's somebody who is going through an identity crisis every other day, right? He was in China, got clowned for that when he was representing China, calling himself Chinese. And
black outside, China inside. I am Chinese. I'm the black dragon.
I feel like Dricus du Plessis really struck a nerve with this one.
Yeah. Are you taking the servants with you when you're going back? Are you taking the servants with you if you're going back?
What the fuck are you even on about?
My God. It's obviously a see and tell. We can see that. What do you mean? You're saying that I made it about
shut the fuck up. You don't even know anything about my story. You have no idea who the fuck I am.
Because you can see the instant reaction on Izzy talking about, you don't know my story. Well, Izzy, we do know your story because you've told your story, and that story is not of an impoverished person growing up in Africa. It was of a privileged person growing up in Africa.
But yeah, I was, brought up in a privileged household, but I never really knew I was privileged because my parents we still had to do chores, even though we had maids. It's a big ass house. Yeah. We have people like to do all this kind of stuff.
Being born in Africa, by virtue of being born in Africa, does not instantly make you an impoverished kid who went through a lot. And right, everyone's gone through a lot. It doesn't matter where you grew up. But I feel like using your background for brownie points, it just isn't it when we have history and we have video proof and quotes of you talking about your upbringing, talking about how you didn't even know how to brush your teeth until you were like 8 years old, right? You grew up quite privileged. Now, of course, granted, I'm not too sure what life is like in Africa. In case you guys didn't know, actually, I will get into some personal background here. My dad's side of the family are Portuguese. So half of me is Portuguese. And they actually immigrated, at least my grandfather and grandmother, my vavô and vavá, they immigrated to Angola in Africa at one point. And then the reason why they ended up here where I am currently in Canada is because they had to flee the country as refugees, right? And they really did have a very tough way of life in Angola. But of course, I can't rep that, right? My family grew up in Africa. My father grew up in Africa, I think, until he was about 10 or 11 years old. They lived in Africa, and all my aunts and uncles had the same, and they experienced what they experienced. And that was a war-torn country at that time, and they went through a lot. But they don't come out and talk about their experiences in Africa for brownie points, right? Because people who have gone through real hardships don't do that. They don't use their hardships. They don't use their heritage as a way to appeal to others and gain brownie points, because it's not necessary and it's disingenuous. And I think when Israel Adesanya speaks about his African heritage, he's doing it to appeal to others, right? Because he's the only one out of all these African fighters, I guess, Al Hassan, whatever that, Abdul Rozak, the one who fought, who was it recently? Cody Brundage, right? He got a little bit offended, but you don't see people like Francis Ngannou being offended by what Drick has said, because Francis Ngannou knows what he went through. The man actually struggled in Africa. He really did live that impoverished lifestyle. The man was working day in, day out in sand mines, right? Hard physical labor, and he wasn't enabled by his family. Not that it's a bad thing, right? If you grow up with that type of privilege to chase your dreams, that is a privilege in and of itself, and you should be happy for that. You should be grateful for that. Not trying to paint this picture that you grew up in Africa struggling like the rest of them when you didn't do it. But that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you lesser than. But when you try and twist the story and try and rewrite history, that's when people start having a problem with it. And with Israel Adesanya, I think that's what takes a lot away from his appeal and his likability. And it's why he's lost so many fans over the years. It's just very telling of the mental state that he's in, right? The second that Drick has brought up the servants, Israel Adesanya did not like that, man. He did not like that whatsoever. And watching him break down crying, like, on one hand, I kind of felt bad for the dude. Like, I was laughing, but I was also genuinely feeling sympathetic for the guy, because going through an identity crisis it's not a fun thing. I've had people in my personal life that I've noticed have gone through that type of identity crisis before, and it's a sad thing, especially as an adult, because it is inherently a very childish thing to go through. I feel it's like your inner child coming out and expressing itself a little bit, and it is sad to witness sometimes. So when I saw Israel Adesanya break down like that and start crying, because I mean, like, he's had a tough couple of years, right? You get absolutely clowned by Sean Strickland leading up to their fight, and then put on the performance that you put on, get walked down by Sean Strickland like that after all the trash talk and humiliating you and bringing a lot of that dog stuff to light. Like I know MMA Guru did a lot of that, and he's responsible for a lot of that coming to light. But Sean Strickland brought it up on a world stage. So that's very humiliating for Israel Adesanya, right? It's extremely humiliating. Then he put on that performance, goes essentially MIA for like an entire year, comes back, and then he's clowned again for the dog stuff, and then he's clowned for the servants and all those talking points that have come up against Israel Adesanya. That kind of just paints him as this weird, like, stolen valor type guy. Like, he's essentially stealing valor from guys like Francis Ngannou, who really did, like I said, grow up in that rough environment. So I don't know. It's a weird character thing for me. I don't understand it from Israel's perspective. If you grew up privileged, if you grew up with money, then just be grateful for it and embrace it, right? You don't have to be one of these guys who grew up on the street and had to fight for everything. That's okay. If your parents were there for you and enabled you and funded your escapades in life, then you consider yourself lucky and be grateful for it. And then you won't have to feel the need to appeal to others who grew up rougher than you, because you're grateful for what you had, right? At the end of the day, Drick has said what he said. He's a grown man and he speaks in plain English. And I respect a man who speaks in plain English. What he said about being the first African residing champ is true, and you cannot take that away from him, because what he said, the words that he said, he doesn't mean anything else by it. He means exactly what he said, and it's true, and you cannot say anything against that. Right? Speaking in plain English is a masculine trait, and a lot of people are used to people having underlying meanings to whatever they're saying, but Dricus just said what he said, and Izzy was the one who spun it. I know Usman got a little bit butthurt by it, but I feel like his reaction was pretty reasonable, especially when you compare it to Izzy's, right? But I did feel bad, in all honesty. I will say, as much as I do think that Dricus is going to win this fight, and I'm hoping that he wins this fight, and I think off the back of this, does it instill any more confidence in me that Dricus is going to win the fight? Not necessarily. I felt like he had the mental edge going into this anyway. Like, Dricus is a very cool, calm, collected guy. Even in the moments where Izzy was talking about, you don't know my story, his response, and I don't care about your story. And you can see the little reaction right here from Israel Adesanya. He takes a moment, right? He pauses, because that's the reality of the situation. Nobody cares about your story.
About your story. I don't care about your story.
Listen, my father and myself had to wake up at 4 a.m. and clean the banks while my mom studies to be a nurse. You don't know my fucking story.
Now, this is one line I really wanted to focus on here, because I think it paints the exact picture of what I've been painting about Israel Adesanya, is that he doesn't actually know what real struggle is. And I get it, right? Everyone has gone through something. Like I said, everyone has gone through something. But to say you don't know my story, and then to say that my father and I wake up at 4 a.m. to clean the banks while my mother was studying to be a nurse? Wow. I don't know about you, man, but my mom used to work like 3 different jobs to make ends meet, right? My father and I were pretty much homeless at one point. My father, my brother, and I were on the verge of homelessness at one point growing up, right? We grew up in Canada. It doesn't matter where you grow up, but it's like stating it the way that he stated it. He made it seem like it was a serious situation he was going through. I'm sorry, but your mother was studying to be a nurse. It's a pretty lucrative position, right? And your father was a banker. Another very lucrative job to work. And this story that you brought up in order to once again appeal to your African fan base paints the exact opposite picture that you're trying to paint of yourself the whole time, that you grew up struggling. Clearly you weren't struggling. If that's the story that indicates the most struggle throughout your childhood, really, you have to wake up at 4 a.m. to clean the banks while your mom goes and studies to be a nurse. Congratulations, man. Congratulations.
Don't fucking speak of my story if you don't know my story.
I don't care.
I will show you who you are Sunday. So right now, shut the fuck up.
I can't wait.
Bye, let's say you see.
You're talking about, I made it about anything else.
You did.
Being the first.
In reality, Israel Adesanya made it about race, right? He made it about identity, because that's how Israel Adesanya sees the world. Clearly, he sees the world through a lens of color and race, and that's pretty much it, right? Dricus talks about being African, and he instantly looks at him and doesn't consider him African because of the color of his skin, when all that matters is where you were born. Right, as far as ancestors, yeah, were his ancestors African? No, they very likely were not. But that doesn't make him any less African, because he was born there and that's all he knows. When that's all somebody knows, you can't tell them that they're not this, because that's literally all that they know. It's like somebody who grows up in the hood or grows up around a certain ethnic group and they don't belong to that same ethnic group. They may grow up speaking the same way with the same type of dialect or speech pattern, and it doesn't make him any less African. In fact, it is genuinely racist to insist that he isn't African, or even insinuate that he isn't African because of that, or talk about, I'll show you where you're from, or all this shit, talk about colonizing and all that shit.
He doubled down on it as well. Again, it just shows his ignorance and his mindset, like his ancestors, see something that we're doing and doesn't want to be a part of it, wants to take it all for himself. That's colonialism. Do your homework.
Is this the Muslim?
Dricus has nothing to do with that, and neither did you, right? You didn't have to go through colonization. You didn't have to experience that. So I believe to continue bringing it up over and over again just once again speaks to this victim mentality that Israel Adesanya has, and it makes him very unlikable.
You couldn't even respect the people of the land.
I am the
Walking
first.
in the country, you were the one not even doing anything. I took my shoes off to connect with the people, with the mob. What did you do? You stand there and try to mean mug me. Are you stupid?
My man.
I'm not your fucking man, bitch.
This is my land. Oh, shit. Just not that. You're gonna do what I did, take as the first residing African. That was exactly
silly.
it. You
sound
never
like a
change
fucking
that.
pig.
You can't change
I
that.
will slay you, porky
Impossible.
pig. Shut up, pink fit.
You can't change the facts, but you can't change those facts.
But ultimately, I do respect Israel Adesanya as a competitor. I think taking this fight right now, I think we underestimate just how difficult this fight probably is to take for Israel Adesanya on a mental level because of what just happened against Strickland. He comes back now, he loses this fight against Dricus. His legacy is all but finished at that point, right? Because of all the shit that he's talked, all the terrible things that he's said, all the lies that he's told. To come out here, get clowned 2 fights in a row, humiliated, not just humiliated by them, but by Alex Pereira as well. So in the midst of all this, Alex Pereira has been doing everything that Izzy has always wanted to do. So this all must really sting pretty badly for Israel Adesanya, and there is a part of me, like the empathetic side of me, that does genuinely feel bad for him. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the press conference and my updated thoughts on the fight. I suppose my pick is not changing. I still do think Dricus du Plessis will get it done by submission in the 4th round. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about the press conference, what you thought about Israel crying at the press conference, what you thought about Dricus' trash talk. Because man, he must be one of the most effective trash talkers of all time. To be making 2 former champions cry like that, it's wild to me. It is wild to me. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Crowd quite like you. Ceremonial weigh-in tomorrow at 11. We're going to clear the stage and square off these athletes.